Hello and welcome to this episode of the GrowVC Everyone Funding Startups podcast. Social entrepreneurship has exploded in the recent years with many applications to make for a better tomorrow in our world. Today, I guess we could say that we have a case study of sorts on this, with our guest Christian Busch, one of the founders of the Sandbox network. So Christian, it's a pleasure having you on the podcast. And would you give a little background on yourself to our audience?
Hi, Marcus. Thanks a lot for having me. It's a pleasure talking to you about social entrepreneurship and Sandbox. Well, I've always been pretty passionate about bringing together inspiring ideas and inspiring people. So I had the pleasure to travel a lot, to study in different countries, and to especially also work in a variety of jobs from consulting to politics. And at some point, I had the luck to meet my founders. My 5 brilliant co-founders in Zurich, where we then came up with the idea to build a community of those inspiring innovators below 30 who would have a real impact on our lives, but also a larger impact in this world. So this is how Sandbox came about then, and we're pretty happy to bring together our passions with this institutionalized idea.
And could you share a little bit more about Sandbox as a network, how it works, and a brief overview?
Absolutely. So Sandbox is a social enterprise, as you correctly stated. So we have an organizational form which allows us to have a community which is self-sustained by certain revenue streams, but which has the overall arching goal to build the most valuable community of young, inspiring achievers in the world. And so what we do is in now 20 countries in the world, we have local ambassadors who are organizing local events, who are identifying the most inspiring and the most exciting young people, from writing to entrepreneurs to business to politics, out of the belief that usually when you have really, really cool, really, really good people in a certain field, they are usually not connected beyond their fields. So we want to provide this trusted environment for people who make their ideas happen, and connect them to, on the one hand side, their peers on a very high level, and then on the other hand, with senior people and resources and other things. So only this Monday, actually, we had a dinner with the CEO of The Economist, for example. These people have the dire need as well to get in touch with very inspiring people, because in the end, like, this is what will really shape this world.
And what's a community like right now? How many members is it, and from roughly how many different countries?
So we have around 500 members now who were hand-selected. So it's a 3-stage process. So you have to be recommended by someone, or if you don't know anyone, we put you in touch with a referrer. Once you have this, then we do the usual CV screening just to see if you're up for exciting things. And the third step is the so-called wow effect. So it's all about if you would sit at a digital table in the evening and tell your story, people would go, wow, this is amazing what you're doing. So it's really all about having those people all over the world who are the real multipliers, the real shakers below 30. So of these people, we have 500 from now 44 countries. So we focus on key innovation clusters. So we have clusters like Bangalore, New York City, Beijing, Amsterdam, Berlin, where we feel that there is real innovation happening. There are people who really shape different fields, and there we build ecosystems for them. So we have on the one hand side the community, which is organized by the local ambassadors, and then a ecosystem of partners and senior people who accelerate those young people within these hubs.
And I guess the network has got quite a bit of visibility globally as well. For example, it was just featured in France's TechCrunch, isn't that correct? And that has to serve as a big validation of the community and the over 500 members. Those are just a big validation of that social enterprises such as Sandbox Network are kind of part of this contemporary setting and building the future.
Well, I believe completely correctly that there is a lack of trusted platforms for people who want to make real impact and inspire each other, and especially also build meaningful relationships. I mean, there is a lot of networking pages out there and things, but I think what really differentiates communities from networks is the idea that you actually build meeting places where these people we believe in can build meaningful relationships which last much longer. So they are much stronger. So it's really the ability to then leverage this social capital at this stage, but also at a later stage at a totally different level. And also the idea that we found that a lot with especially exactly what you mentioned, like TechCrunch or Wired or other journals writing about us, that there is a dire need for people who not only talk but actually make ideas happen. And I think this is something we always looked at to really identify those people all over the world who combine thinking and doing and not stop at the theoretical level.
In building a big hub like this with so many members, and I mean, there must have been lots of different stages building the network to this stage. So the whole process of setting up Sandbox and going to the late 2010 now, what have you learned during this process?
It's a very good question. I think one of the major learnings was the importance of the team, really. So to really say, I mean, we had the luck to have a team with very complementary skills and abilities. And the interesting thing I found was that in the end, a company or an organization is always subject to negotiation of ideas, negotiation of strategies. So one of the key learnings I had personally for me was the importance of really discussing assumptions as well. So, for example, we all had a similar idea of like how we want Sandbox to look like, how we want to have this amazing community to work. But then actually writing this down into something like a business plan and kind of having iterative processes in terms of discussing the actual how. It was really interesting and impactful, and we're constantly thinking into like when you look into why most organizations break at some point, it's really this issue of succession, right? And it's the issue of how can you make sure that the passion of the founders is then taken on also from younger people, and especially also ambassadors all over the world. So I found it's really a lot connected to the ability to communicate your mission, but especially also to find those people who are able to take this to the next level again. And we are really happy to have ambassadors all over the world who take on this role of in a way, incubating local ecosystems with our ideas and our passions.
Yeah, so what actually happens when you, the founders, turn 30? Who takes over?
That's a good question, because we see Sandbox as the main community is 20 to 30, and we always said we want to be part of the target group. So I think this is something we value very strongly. We can imagine very well that, I mean, we are currently building an alumni community, so we will certainly also build things like a seed fund, which will directly invest into our members. We will certainly also build certain other organizations around Sandbox, which will be accelerating our members. So this can be incubators, this can be content-related think tanks and things like this, because there is such an amazing potential, this amazing creativity of our members to really build that into a whole movement. So I believe that we will most probably be somehow building something around Sandbox. So say we will probably hand over the management of the actual community to people who are still then part of the target group, and then move on to something where we could then bring in our competence, for example, in building a seed fund.
And you touched on this a little bit, but what's going on with Sandbox and the development right now? What are you working on?
So we are working on two sides at the moment. So on the one hand side, the community is really growing at a pace which is, even for us at some points, a bit too dynamic. Because the cool thing is, what happens is that you have a lot of members who are very, very passionate about Sandbox, because they see they gain a lot of value out of it. They gain brilliant friendships. In the end, Sandbox is a network of extraordinary friends, and they kind of have the feeling they want to contribute. So it's the word has been spread so